that I've seen you connect to in regards to dragons as to why you would particularly like dragons.
I mean, I've always loved dragons. Like, I remember when I was playing those games, when I was a kid, like Heroes 3 and Might and Magic and Heroes of Might and Magic and Diablo and EverQuest and I've always been into fantasy, dragons and fantasy.
And before we go too far into this, let me tell everybody who you are. This is Araxu, Axaru, Mr. Kutulu.
Yep. That's right.
Adama, various things that he's his channel. And now his new channel, which
I'm like the demons. I have many names. Yeah, sorry,
well, that's the thing. No matter how many names one has, they can be real names.
Well, what did he say again? It can't be real names, or what did he say?
They can be real names. It's like, who gets to say which is the? I mean, they're all titles people have.
Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, if the gods can have a lot of names, I can have a lot of names. I can be as sneaky and hidey as they are. If they're gonna be like that, I'm gonna be like that. And your name is Jafar, is that correct?
Jafar, yeah.
Jafar. Where did that name come from, if I may ask?
Well, I looked at the meaning of it. Now, Little streams sort of the Persian meaning of it. I don't identify with as much.
I've noticed you're very much into Persian mythologies.
What?
I've noticed you're very much into Oriental mythology.
Yeah, I think the book I'm sharing on my channel right now is one that I argue with more than any other book I've ever done that with, because it's written by a Christian missionary that's doing this dispensationalist thing, and he's, I think there's a lot more reasons why people don't accept Christianity than he's saying, and I don't really think previous myths are, just symbolic secrets of pointing towards Christianity or something.
Oh yeah, I mean, it can be a lot of reasons for.
What you're saying?
I mean, you spoke about reasons for Christianity. That sounds a little like, do you need reasons other than the fear of going to hell for eternity? I mean, that's a reason for itself, I think.
Well, the thing is, I mean, how many groups say it? You need a little more than my faith is stronger than yours, and I mean, even their idea of hellfire is not as strong as some other groups that actually accept other people to just, that say everything counts or something, and therefore it's not just that one thing. But as far as the rest of the meaning, there's the ancient Egyptian Jafar, and Jafar is, the TJ.
That's an Arabic kind of name. Jafar, like, is that like the Aladdin Jafar or?
No, I don't. That has nothing to do with the association for me, but it does for some people, and people make comments about the movie. And I mean, the guys in the Arabian Nights story, I think it's instead of Aladdin, I think originally it was, if it was in Arabic, it was Alahuddin or something. But anyways, the Egyptian meaning that I was going to say with that one is. Thou the same I. So basically a spiritual person. That's basically what the whole thing means.
Okay, that suits you very much, that label, I think.
But it implies it with the whole with the Persian meaning too, because the idea of a stream is in terms of knowledge and stuff like this. It's like, I know I don't have it all. The more I learn, there's more I don't.
Yeah, I think that you are a very humble occultist compared to 99% of the other ones out there, I must say, because you are, what I like about you is that you, compared to many occultists, they're very much into the occult box, don't question just do what blindly the rituals and have faith in the rituals, and you are more like an individual who is like the occult, the world is the occult for you. That's what I like about you.
Yeah. Well, one of the things it's like, okay, other people have one of the persons I was going to be on, I was going to interview, and then he decided, you know, you don't get too many views. It's like my most viewed video is like 7,000 something views, but my interviews are all under 2,000 views. Even EA Quetting. But he basically the problem with this guy in particular is
there's a lot of problems with that guy.
What?
There's a lot of problems with that guy, I must say.
But this one guy that I said is he's you know, he has issues with etymology, and he doesn't like anybody to admit that maybe people have experiences that don't line up with what he has to say. So, you know, he demonises things, shuffles cards, and all sorts of stuff. But I mean, I have referenced Lzwvmmh, but I think that's that, and the reason not so many views is the reason why he won't be on the channel, and I do understand that. But I do think it would have been funny to spoof Joy of Satan Ministries with him, because Joy of Satan Ministries was commenting on my channel saying that me and VK Jehannam are secret Jews, part of some conspiracy. I don't remember exactly what, but
that's very interesting, because I've had those thoughts myself, considering the fact that VK Jehannam is dealing with Archangel Michael and saying that Archangel Michael is this is something I never understood. I mean, I remember the Pinhead said something about angels to some, demons to others, and I really starting to believe that maybe angels and demons are. I mean, there's 72 demons. There are 72 names of God. I mean, there's a connection there. What do you think about this?
Well, that's the connection probably goes back to the Set myth of ancient Egypt, where where Set and his 72 buddies conquered Osiris.
Now I remember. Yeah.
You got the 5 degrees of the it's basically the Goetian. Every other grimoire is basically just a leading version where they messed up with previous mythology to make it, oh, I'm such a good Christian, the demons are going to convert because I called them up, or that's actually the underlying current, and it's right there in the Goetia. That's half of what you're trying to do. But I mean, this stuff ties to older stuff, and it's like they twist the meaning of stuff. It's like Palestine. Palestine's not. The Romans were the first people to call it Palestine, but the Jews like to play games with words that insulted people. And so calling these people wallowers for the female Satan was really, it wasn't that they really were, it's just that's what they like to say. Calling everybody Goyim when that's not just believing something different. You're insulting people by that. But
very much doing that.
The Christians did the same thing. Some of these meanings of Goetia names, if you trace them back, it's no longer the ugly sounding thing that it's. But I don't think
mentioned the Goetia.
I keep okay, yeah. I've watched a lot of Poker Onion. It's not Goetia. It's Goetti. Goetia. Thai, but
Goetia.
What's it in Greek? Gothai or Gothaya, the calling up of demons. Yeah.
Gothaya. What's Gothaya?
The Greek. I'm not too good at writing backwards, but for my thing, you got this Greek word, and you have. That's sort of a Gohtheia. Those aren't the Greek names for the letters, but that's basically how it's spelt in Greek. So that's where the whole thing comes from. So many people say Goetia. Even I mess up and say Goetia, but Goetia is, you know.
So it's not pronounced Goetia. It's pronounced Goetic.
It could be a dialect thing because some things are pronounced differently in England than America, but English people say Goeti.
Kind of stupid to say that Goetia was inspired by the word Goy, because Goetia pronounced many different ways.
So, a lot of things are pronounced many different ways, but while we're on the subject of names, before we kind of transfer to something else,
I know you're very knowledgeable about these things, so I'm very happy that I'm having this video with you. So
you can call this thing my dream. It's called Lzwvmmh. It's sort of a dream language I have, I guess. But I'm going to give you I'm going to repeat a few times the name I got for you on that. It's not
going to have an effect on me, I hope. Your incantation here.
Well,
I don't like
whatever intention you have is whatever intention you have.
Okay.
Lzwvmmh Zu Puff Wa Zens Zuch Lu Zeef Oof Nurah Zu Puff Wa Zens Zuch Lu Zeef Ul Nurah Zu Puff Wa Zens. And that's his 9 vibrations. And
did it have any effect on me occultly, or I hope not?
Again,
when you were chanting it, did it affect me in some way? I hope not, because I don't like to be affected by things outside of myself.
Well,
tell me a little bit about what you were doing.
Well, I started on Facebook when I was given a degree of charge in terms of certain Facebook groups before they deplatformed me. But I would give out these 9 vibration names because, you know, the number 9. What?
9 vibrations. What kind of vibrations?
Well, I mean, you know, these names are broken into 9 parts. I've also given objects and things and I got all these chants and stuff in this language, and I didn't have any meaning, but in the past year or so, I've been meaning for some of these things. But
where do you get all the inspiration and knowledge for these things from? That's what I've always wondered when I'm looking at your videos. Like, are you in contact with demons, or where do you get knowledge?
I think even in some of the videos I'm mentioning, this is what I've just experienced. Stuff doesn't go quite through. It's like, but I'm not doing like, you know, it's like I don't like what the Catholic Church did when they turned things around and they're doing a show, and now all these preachers are standing in the middle. Look at me, look at me. And it's like I usually just have the camera faced out some direction, and it's like, join me, don't join me, whatever. But I've encountered some entities.
Okay.
And
I talk about that, or
well, let's we can
want to finish off the 9 vibrational thing.
Well, anyways, there's various ways of thinking of it. People divide the physical self into 9 parts, 9 gates. You know, the eyes, the nose, the ears, the mouth, and such. The Egyptians kind of broke the self into 9 parts. So the one's the body, so it's not really the and the other's the mind, and you know the so it's a very commonly repeating number, but that's just kind of what came through as how I should do it.
Trust what comes through, or do you think there's deception, spiritual deception going on?
Well, that's the thing. It's like
that's what you're getting.
Everything that shows up, it's like, first of all, people usually just assume things. It's like people worship Michael and stuff like this and just assume if they ever contact anything or feel anything or just see something psychedelic, which is usually all it is. It's usually not any direct spiritual awareness. I'm not. I mean, I'm not discrediting it. I see light in rituals on a daily basis. I feel sensations like I just took some serious medication or something like that. You know, I'm talking like painkillers and stuff. There's some of those sensations that come through, but I'm not saying, oh, this is this spirit or that spirit. But that's mostly what people do. It's like we mentioned the Goetia, the Goetian, and people have, you know, people automatically assume it's you know, oh, that's Citri right there, but it's probably not Citri. It's probably some being. If they did contact a being, it's probably some being that witnessed what they were doing and says, "Oh, well, let's go mess with this dude," or maybe not mess with them, but just, you know, communicate. But
I mean, assumptions work if there is a smaller amount of ambiguity, but many of these gods that people assume things onto are very ambiguous, can be interpreted in more than one way or seen in many more ways than one.
Well, that's the thing. If you look at people's experience, your own personal interpretation of it could be different, and that's where one's going.
So there's a lot of naive trust in these gods in the occult, and even though there's so many different interpretations, and that's kind of one thing that I react upon, like more the stupidity aspect of the whole thing, if you know what I mean. But you seem very humble.
It operates through people, because people, you know. They say, "Oh well, I'm stepping away from the dogmatic way of Christianity, but I'm going to accept whatever I think the interpretation is." But they're going to be like, it's still the same thing. They're not really, they're not manifesting those qualities. They're not empowering themselves. They're just surrendering to a different entity.
That's exactly how it is. I mean, Satanism is, well, my understanding of it is a reaction to dogmatism, a reaction to the box, and it's just one box replacing another. It seems one dogma replacing another, and I don't see any difference. Do you see any difference?
Same thing with the New Agers. A lot of them, they say, "Oh, well, we're set," and then they end up more dogmatic, more closed-minded than ever.
Exactly.
And you know, you find a couple. I mean, truth isn't according to our. We can't just desire truth, or we like something and it ends up being the good thing. It's like every other It's like animals. If we're going to say that, just look at what animals do and just justify our space on animals. It's like, there are animals who will hump trees until they bleed. I mean, are you really going to justify that yourself because you just have an urge? It must be the natural thing.
Yeah, natural thing. Yeah,
because people are very confused about what's natural, because the media programs us. We program ourselves. It's a tricky endeavor. But I mean, marking down what experiences are, but knowing what to do with it. That's why, you know, it's interesting to look at intention. It's like I met a guy who would go to a magic.
Keyword. Yeah.
What? And this guy would go. So he would go to a mosque.
That's a key word.
And inside himself, he'd be praying to Satan, but everybody else thought he was. Oh well, he's coming more than once a week, or more than once or twice a year or something. He's coming multiple times a week, but he was really secretly dedicating the whole thing to Iblis. So
yeah, exactly. So intention is, and we can see the intention of people very easily. I mean, you can see equating his intention is how do you say? I mean, he maybe I shouldn't say too much there. I mean, I think there is one aspect of his intention. I don't know if you noticed it. Is he makes it very clear that he's about there's a deceptive kind of intention in his
well,
ways.
he basically said when I interviewed them that there's something that he throws in that's not true in every single book he does. And you notice there's a lot of staging, and even the point of having fake graveyards. There's a video where they have a fake graveyard, and it's like, well, why don't you use a real graveyard? They're not too rare or something.
It still works, maybe. But it still works.
It's a provocative channel that gets people to comment and stuff like this. If the comment section was closed,
I noticed that one.
I would have gave up watching the channel a long time if there wasn't that at least the comment section open. But it's like, it gets you to think about stuff, whether or not you take the guy as authoritative, because as I said, he lies in every book he does. So what can you trust the rest of it? But there's symbolic structures and stuff to work with.
I think equating is like a Wikipedia. I don't call it Wikipedia, and people do with it what they want and what they see fit, and it doesn't really matter maybe what the intention of the teacher is in that area. Sometimes.
Well, there's certainly some authentic students and people with real intentions going after that. So,
Exactly.
So what do you think is the purpose of life?
I personally believe, I'm going to speak from emotion and feeling here. I personally think the meaning of life is to experience hyperspace. Everything that has been we have been disconnected from by the matrix, you could say, the dream world, the fantasy world, the world of imagination. I think our subconscious mind is what gives our life meaning, because the subconscious is the one that can create, and we are here to experience our own creations in a way. And what do you think about that?
Well, human beings certainly have an innate symbolic thinking. There's subjective and objective aspects to how we have to run things, and they act like, so social media has turned just to be, go online and have 400 Facebook friends and don't contact people. I've seen that happen to family. I've seen that happen to even a woman that had it not been for that, going down that route, I don't know. I might have moved someone or married this woman, but she kind of just shut off from properly dealing with people, because she's like, I got to have that 400 friends on MySpace or Facebook or whatever it was.
Quantity over quality, right?
MySpace, and then it was Facebook. What?
Yeah, it's quantity over quality kind of thing.
And it kind of prevents a lot. There's a lot of unnecessary negative feedback and trolling, to the point where it's like they don't even respond. There's not even the response to death threats anymore, because it's like, oh, well, that's happening left and right. It doesn't mean anything. It's like, it could mean something.
Exactly.
And it's like
what I'm speaking about in my YouTube channel very much. The apathy.
One guy didn't like the fact that I quoted Bible passages that were, I guess, disagreeable with his church, and he literally went to everybody with my name in that city. Probably that's why he showed up in the middle of the night rather than closer to getting off of work time. Was that he probably went through he could have went through every address in that city and then came to my door. But that guy was weak anyway. Anyways, anybody who brings a woman along then pushes the woman in between you and the other person when it's time to fight. I mean,
Can I ask you this? I have this limited amount of internet on my. I use my iPhone, connected to the computer to use Wi-Fi. Do you think Skype takes a lot of Wi-Fi, or I got like 5 gigabytes left?
I find it uses less than other servers, and I can record more via Skype than others, because it's like my signal they try to trick you into paying like an extra $40 a month for a better signal, and it's like, to get the 2 hours, it can take me up to 20 days in my location to get the signal that I'm looking for. So I'm not. There's no way I'm falling for that. But what I'm saying is it doesn't. Skype doesn't use as much, and it seems to maintain a clear picture better than like Google Hangouts did.
Yeah, because I noticed that my Wi-Fi it hadn't taken so much from my Wi-Fi, so it's good. I was just a little worried about it.
but yeah, one of the things I was saying, I think social media for itself is sort of stifling of individuality and personalization and
exactly.
Actualization, because just like other stuff, just like the mainstream, it's like being religious in my country is not very common. The Christians are still, I think they're still the majority. Last I checked, it was like 52% of the country's Christian, but Christianity for the most part is just preemptive forgiveness and that sort of thing. So it's not, it's basically they claim that Jesus saved them, and that's about the size of it. Maybe they've gone to church that year or something, but they're not really doing anything with it. And social media, people look at PewDiePie or whatever and look at all these people that are famous and stuff, and they're like living through it or something, and it's like, so if someone has a mission to do on Facebook or something like that, whatever, but if they're just on there to have friends, I really think people should stay off of it. And
there's I think the YouTube was made to give people give an outlet for people's mission to live through in a very good way. I really like YouTube for that way. It's self-actualized a lot of people with missions in life. You could definitely say that.
Yeah. The results may be stifled in terms of they look at your connection. They look if Google, for example, looks if you have other Google and Amazon looks if you have other social media, and if they find that for your name that you're using, they'll up your results versus down your results. Yeah, exactly. But it's also you have to be popular to start with. They look at that. Exactly. You have to be linked. If you're not linked to a company, you could have a book that has 1,000 sales, and you can't be found necessarily because
I hate that.
It's private publishing. My father made $20-something thousand over the years of one of his books, but it was not with a big company. It was private published. He went around, with medical work and stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. I mean, so as I said, YouTube is very good in that sense, because
it's like I remember Google. If you remember Google at the start of the 2000s, if you wrote a good paper, you could.
I remember that.
Your paper could be found, and then all of a sudden it can't. There's somebody who misunderstood a couple papers that I put out there and made a website, and that was still around. And none of my papers from back in the day were still up on the internet, but that new website was.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I have more videos on Enochian than anybody, but there's videos out there other than the Jason Liu ones that have more views than my entire channel, and it's like, or I could be the only one who puts forth the video. I could be the first one who does it. Even something mentioned on the news. Okay, I'm going to put a spin on this, and it's like I don't even get my channel subscribers worth of views, but. As long as I'm doing my thing for me and it's satisfactory to me, and maybe at least one other person is going to go through whatever I do. Maybe 7,000.
Exactly. That's how I'm thinking too when I'm doing my YouTube channel. I don't care about subscribers or anything, as long as I get it out there. It's a site.
I'm certainly not going to be one of these people who shave my whole body and oil myself up with a loincloth on and cut myself and hope that I get the views and maybe get 100 views, which is really bad when that for someone that's like, I thought it was going to go viral, and it's like there's other people doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And so both in good and in bad, YouTube can, as again, it gives people with visions a chance but it also gives an opportunity for worthless people, for people with no vision and no dreams, no hopes, nothing, to just be famous for absolutely nothing. So that's
Well, the thing about it, it's like America's Funniest Home Videos and that sort of stuff. It's like people getting hurt and various other things. It's like some of those people end up on disability, and people even try to make make these sort of shows, and it's like, it's not necessarily the thing to encourage. It's like, I think it was Guinness Book of World Records. I saw something that said that's not a thing anymore, but there was certain stuff they wouldn't take part in. Like the person is, it's like you get too much tobacco, you die. So the person setting the record for the most cigarettes smoked, that's there's certain stuff that they didn't want a part of.
Mm.
It's like Aliester there's most of the danger. I'm not into statute crimes. I don't think that's appropriate. If people are going to smoke or drink whatever, allow all the rest of the drugs. Don't make the illegal ones so dangerous with adulterants just because you want to fill jails. If they were cleaned up, it's like regardless of how dangerous ecstasy is, it's like almost all the damage to the stuff nowadays is because of the adulterants, and people don't even know that they're taking MDMA. And that's it was a drug in the 80s they used in therapy, and they found out some people become permanently depressed off a single usage, but it's far more dangerous nowadays. Heroin, safe, Tylenol, but I mean that's the clearest example. Heroin, if it's just if it's just diacetylmorphine, it's safer than any man-made painkiller. It's safer than even Tylenol. People could spend 60 years making that stuff, but when they make it drain cleaner, paint thinner, and surface cleaner, that's no. And on top of that, it's like the meth. The meth is even worse. That will kill you in 10 years, best case scenario, because of all the stuff that it's made with. I mean, like battery acid and
battery acid,
brake fluids in the meth, the drain cleaners is what they use to make heroin. But I mean, they don't have to use that stuff, but that's because it's illegal.
Oh, really? I didn't know this.
Ever since they corporatized the prison system, they've switched over to just focusing on statute crimes. You have literally rapes will be reported, and they're like, yeah, but we have some guy who didn't know, who made some inappropriate comment to someone and didn't realize they were underage. Let's prosecute him instead. But so on to a lighter subject. I don't know where I was going with that one.
Let's focus more on the kind of the occult questions a little bit, because I think there's so much I want to discuss with you there.
Well, yeah, that's what spiritual opinions and experiences. Well, I think the point that maybe I should make with that one is the brain, the body, whatever you want to call it. We have over 50 chemicals that produces all these drug-like highs, and you can definitely produce some of these things mystically, although it can take time. Yeah. People don't spend 2 months or 3 months or even 6 months trying to learn how to get high in a particular way, and you got to have some other context with the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I've explored this area myself lately with the chemical aspect you spoke about. I've noticed that just diet is magic itself, don't you think? Like chaga mushroom
that's the thing. They want all these. Back in the 50s, the American Psychiatric Associations, they had a goal. Let's figure out how to get to not only do away with religious and family values, but to figure out a way that everybody can be diagnosed with a condition that, we can drug them for. That was literally what they I mean, not the exact words, but that's really what they said. So that's what they have nowadays.
You said that?
If you're against child molestation, for example, for any other reason than it's illegal or somebody may hurt you for it, then they're going to say, oh, well, you have the following psychiatric condition. Literally, the DSM now says that. And it's like, it used to be, and the stuff that they've changed their minds on it. If you thought that you were born, I mean, we're all born into whatever physical condition we are. It's like I don't like the Hindus that talk about high birth and low birth and stuff like that. It's, I mean, there's different social classes, but they're talking about like you deserved whatever misery you got in life, that sort of thing. But yet you see wealthy people that are just crazy and miserable and all that stuff too. So, but anyway, yeah, they wanted to figure out how to just drug us all, even to the point. But they changed their mind on the surgery thing. Anybody who wanted to get castrated and have a dildos, and have it stitched in to look like a vagina or something, or anything else extreme like that with surgery, they said these people are crazy. We need to keep them from hurting themselves. Nowadays, it's like there's a bunch of doctors lined up and saying, no, we want this legal. We want to make a lot of money on these people that are going to get all these trans surgeries and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they're the most likely to kill themselves. So it's not exactly good for them. But when you do something, when you do what you consider to be the right thing, maybe that's not the word you would use for it, but would it be more likely to be out of love?
Yeah, okay, exactly. Yeah.
Or pleasing something, personal enjoyment or pleasure, hope, fear, or hate?
Yeah. Intention again, right? I have a saying that I made up myself with the intention. Like your heart has an inbuilt intelligence, which is called your intuition, and your intuition can respond to another person's intention. Intuition, intention. So if you want to know somebody's intention, look at your intuition, like int.
Well, have you ever had one of those experiences where it's like, you know, something happened, but you're not physically there for it? Like particularly with somebody that you know or something like that, that you just, something's going on and.
Ask the question again. I always the question again.
Have you ever had one of those intuitive connections that it's like you couldn't have learned it directly physically through your observation, but you kind of know such and such happened, or something's going on somewhere or with someone, that sort of thing. Like for example, the very moment, the minute that my grandfather died, I woke up in the middle of the night, the very same minute that they later said he died, and I don't know why. It's like, I don't remember what time at the moment, but it's like exactly what my mother told me was on the death certificate. Was when I woke up. Or there's a particular person that every time they overdose or get locked up in jail or something, it's like no one has to tell me. I know before it shows up on public record. The very minute I'll be in the middle of something, and I'm like, you know, when the meeting gets over or whatever the deal is, it's like
it's like it's predictable in a way.
What?
Like a predictability you're reading.
Well, that's
like, that's kind of very 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 high for me. You know, I very much get the predictable intuition. Like you can predict, like for example, like yesterday I went into a store. You know, I knew I was banned from there like 3 years ago. I was banned, and I said I'm probably banned today as well after these 3 years. But let's go into the store anyway. And I went into the store, the food store, and lo and behold, a guard is coming behind me. You know, and so. I got an intuitive feeling like if I go in there, the guard will come, and you know, because people are like NPCs, you know, they're so predictable in a way. But
well, speaking of predictability, one thing I don't agree. It's like there's people out there. I mean, it's been done since Anton Szandor-LaVey. Basically, he'd do something cursy, and then when someone prominent died or something that he could possibly connect to it, then he'd say something. So there's a lot of people that leave things open to interpretation like that. It's like people who predict the future. Some of it's so vague. It's like, have you read Nostradamus?
Yeah, actually, I haven't.
But Nostradamus, first, some of the stuff he said is so vague that it's got to come true eventually in some way or another. It's like back in the day when people were jousting. I mean, a couple rich dudes, one's stupid enough to have. I mean, this isn't how the quatrain goes, but it's basically what it means. A couple guys are going to be jousting. One of them's going to be some stupid rich guy that has gold on his helmet, and that's where he's going to get poked through. It's like, and then everybody was like, this guy can predict the future. And it's like, no, there was actually gold is soft. You don't fight with gold.
Exactly.
Or like somebody that I've that has been mentioned. You go around cursing drug addicts and criminals, and you're going to find out that some of them die. It's just how it works.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just that these people are just very intuitive compared to the rest of people. Like, they can see what's obvious. That, is it because they're a psychic, or is it because most of the people are just too stupid to even see the obvious things?
Well, I kind of can say that things are broken down in 3 levels. You got the very physical, and you got the psychic, which is really the mental thing. And I don't think necessarily. I mean, the both can interact on each other. The spiritual can interact on the physical, can interact on it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that most of what people consider psychic is just like people learn how to cold read and various other things, and
exactly.
And some of it's just done automatic. But I do think that some people have connections. But again, it's like, what do you do with it? You don't just listen to every whisper. And
exactly.
Eventually, I do think there are people who hear whispers and all that sort of stuff. But eventually, the things lie to them, or they get caught acting out something that they were told. It's like, now one thing that was mentioned in a couple of the particular individuals' books that I've had on this channel, not Mr. King. Mr. King hasn't said anything like this, but someone else. In one of his books, he says something to the effect of, now I'm not buying these things off of eBay or even the $200 new or anything like that, but he said that basically the spirits are going to you do these perverted criminal things if the spirit suggests you, and they'll help you get away with it. And that could be true. They could suggest to a bad cop, overlook this or something like that. But I don't think that's quite true. I think that people may, if there is something out there, that they get prompted towards something and then they get caught because of it.
Yeah. And I mean, I've noticed within myself, I have high social intelligence. I've always had high SQ since I was a kid. When I look at, for example, groups of people, I can see the whole dynamic. I know exactly what's going on in a way. But other people, they don't seem to be able to see it as clearly. I don't know if that is true, if I'm just more sensitive to social dynamic energies, or if it's just that others are as aware, but they're not just speaking about it, or they're playing along with the kind of fakeness so much that I don't know. What do you think about it?
Well, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. That's why, for example, the idea of just drugging down anybody who has any condition, but chemical balances can be dealt with through diet and adjusting media exposure and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
And developing discipline. But one comment that I get sometimes on my channel, which is rude. I try. Thank you very much. But people, Jafar is very autistic, and the thing about autism, for example, is there's some.
I noticed you have an autism there. Yeah.
in terms of light, sound, and social things, if we have some issues in some way, I mean, this is one way to define autism, but if we have issues in one way, we have strengths in other ways. Not use our advantages. It's like Thomas Aquinas. Now, I don't agree with some stuff about Thomas Aquinas, but Thomas Aquinas was clearly autistic. A lot of these people in the past, it's just, oh, this guy likes it dark and quiet, and he'll get a lot of work done.
I don't even know who that guy is.
What?
I don't even know who that guy is, actually.
But
Aquinas.
But that's the thing. It used to be valued in society. Now it's if you can't handle 9 to 5 in a factory, then you're just a worthless individual, and that's literally how or some job like that. That's just
exactly. And they focus on the people's weaknesses rather than on their strengths. The whole educational system is like I was always bullied. You know, I'm not good at football and these things. I really hate these things, and I was bullied because I couldn't play football. But
yeah, it's often coordination issues.
Yeah.
I have coordination issues that, yeah. I had endurance, but I didn't have the coordination to get too far in sports other than getting injured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was good at physics and math and other things I was good at. So and I liked physics very much. I remember like quantum physics. I really hated the mechanical physics, but I liked quantum physics and these metaphysical physics very much. I remember, and like theory of relativity, Einstein, and those kind of things. What were your interests when you were on school?
When I was little,
Remember
tested.
That?
When I was little, I tested in the 99th percentile because I was sort of a whiz when it came to physics and all that sort of stuff. But neither the community colleges nor the institute that actually accepted my test results wanted me enough to pay for the tutor. My parents were middle class and couldn't afford to have somebody go with me, because when you're under 16, you can't go to college without somebody going with you. And my parents couldn't take off work. It took both them, living in California. I mean, California, you were paying $1,000 a month rent or so back when, back when other people were, most of the country is paying $200 rent. That's, so both my parents had to work, so that wasn't happening. But I'm glad in a way, because it's like, what did I prove that I was good at? Drugs and weapons. That's really not the thing I would want weighing on my conscience. These basically destroying humanity one or the other. I wouldn't want to be a part of that.
You have a little Satanist inside there, I see.
Well, if you have these. Don't get me wrong. I'm not completely opposed to violence. I've used violence in self-defense, and I don't have any issue with people that actually use it for self-defense. But just because they want some land or they want people in this country to work for this country and that sort of thing, and that there's stuff that I basically I'm basically against almost every war that ever happened. But I do see the value of that. But
those wars were not fought for your ship. You're always fighting somebody else's war. That's a war.
Well,
you have to fight your own battles.
Particularly the past few hundred years, you look at, there's been people that have made money on 1, 2, even 4 sides, that you even have 4 sides that don't quite work on the same side fighting some war, and somebody is someone is, certain people are making money on multiple sides of a war. Every war my country has fought since World War II has hurt the American economy. It's hurt the social criminal systems and stuff like this. But,
I think violence, like there are 2 aspects of violence. There's societal violence, which is you're violent because you're trying to defend a societal worthless cause, or you can be violent because you are valuing something high within yourself, something spiritual or something is of true value to yourself, and you're being violent. So intention again, you know, anger and violence and these things. It's the intention that makes it pure or impure.
And if you're controlled about it, that you know, there's other sorts of rewards that can come with it. I mean, I would never. I try not to even say a word that's going to unnecessarily hurt anybody. But if there's somebody that's one of those, let's just call them super predators. But you know, when I've hurt one of those people, I kind of enjoyed it. But it wasn't that you know, I was engaging in per se. Well, I guess maybe some of it was criminal, but yeah, it wasn't some, oh, let's look for a victim. That had nothing to do with it. If anything, it was, you know, chasing down. I hurt myself pretty bad once trying to chase someone down because I saw the horrible thing that he just did. But had I caught him, I think he knows that. My one grandfather was making his way towards being a boxing champ, and he saw how brain dead and stuff people were getting from doing that, and he was like, "No way, I'm leaving this. I'm leaving the game with my mind." So he kind of stepped out of things.
Yeah, that is a great analogy there, what you just said, because I mean, like there's a lot of like people jogging, you know, outside. I tell them all the time, you know, why do you only exercise the body? Exercise the mind, the spirit. Like the more stupid you are, the more you exercise physically. Have you seen that connection?
I've used weight machines and stuff like this, but I don't like the idea of just for itself. I'll swing a hoe until I hurt and come back inside and that sort of thing. But just running about and stuff to be running about, or using a weight machine to be using a weight machine, I like to get stuff done with my ability.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, I want to do several things at once. Like instead of running, I could dance or something. It could be fun, you know. Everything to people nowadays must be work. They can't combine fun and work in one thing.
Oh yeah, especially if you learn how to train dance. Well, it's a problem when you live in an apartment building like I did for so many years. That's you have to wait till your neighbors are gone to dance, because if you're going to get into it,
exactly. Otherwise, you call the cops, and the psychiatric hospital will come. Hey, sir, we've seen you dancing on the streets. You need to follow us to the psychiatric hospital. Somebody needs to check you out.
But that's the thing too. It's like dancing. They've ruined dancing into something. It's art for people to look at. It's not for something for people to experience. It's for people to look at you dance.
Another thing, what I would like to add there is like they take things like spiritual and spontaneous, like dancing and running and jogging. All these things should be spontaneous inspirations from the spirit. Like, okay, now I feel like dancing. Now I feel like this. But they've turned that into, okay, during this hour, in this place, you can only dance here, but you can't dance there. You can only do it this time and not that time. They turned everything spiritually into a schedule, it seems.
Well, do you know what the Turks and some other groups did? Either they outlawed various things, or they told, like the Sufis, okay, you can do your dance, just don't enjoy it too much. And the police would literally watch over them and actually arrested people that they thought were enjoying themselves too much in the whirling and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the same with work, for example. Like, people work to live or live to work. Like, people are just, you know, they're living to work in Sweden very much. Like work is not the means.
I can well, I'm not going to say who, but I can definitely point out no less than one person, if not more than that. That's basically, you know, there's plenty of people who can retire, for example, but they're living to pay off insurance policies and cars and all this stuff. It's like, if you want to sit around and read and write or whatever you're going to do, just do it. Don't either lay around in front of the TV and say I can't do it until I retire, or retire in your 70s or whatever, because you can retire. Don't just keep working because I want to spend more insurance, a bunch of insurance that I'm not going to even probably use. And then they go around complaining they don't have enough money, and it's like, what about that? What about all those hundreds of dollars you spent here, there, and the other? And it's like, oh, that doesn't.
For example, to spending thousands of dollars for a psychiatric meeting, which didn't give you anything, for example, or sending it to church, or so people's priorities are very wrong. It's not the lack of money that people suffer from. It's a lack of priority on where to put that fucking money.
The funny thing, if you look at if you actually. Now, the more I read the Bible, the more I realize it's not an authoritative text. It's like the Book of Revelation. One of the things that I started.
It took you so long to realize that. I realized that when I was 3 years old.
No, I mean a long time ago. But what I'm saying, the fact I continue to get exposed to it, or willfully or otherwise, I realize even more. It's not. It's like apocalyptic literature was never had the spiritual authority until people decided, oh, it does, because we don't know what apocalyptic literature is. So when I have on my channel a 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, I don't know, I don't remember how. Chapter.
You have a very holistic kind of view on things.
What?
Yeah, that's what I like about you. You're a holistic occultist. Like, that's what I like about you. You're holistical. That's how a real occultist should be. It should incorporate. It should be holistic. It should incorporate everything, like diet and exercise and reading and knowledge, and like the whole life becomes a magical playground in a way.
Well, I started. Had I not started to try to better change my diet to better experience life and better perform and that sort of thing. Had I not done that earlier, it took me 3 months. People act like, oh, because America doesn't have universal health care, it's better. It's no, we're worse than like every country, I think. But it took me 3 months to get to the doctor, and the only reason why they could properly diagnose me is because I memorized what the sores from the whatever were. Basically, I react to some of the chemicals in the food and stuff like this, and they told me when I got there that I could have 3 to 6 months to live if I basically went back to the American eat bleached bread and chemically treated food and concentrated proteins. Like, the vegetarians aren't any healthier because they eat these concentrated protein and stuff. And they want to go around bragging about it. So it's like, just don't eat. Just don't eat a whole pound of meat for your dinner, and whatever, you're fine.
I usually say 50-50, like 50% normal food. I that's how I eat. Like, I eat sugar candy. I eat normal, but I incorporate every day chaga mushrooms, reishi mushrooms, lion's mane, and spirulina and chlorella, and all these herbs, powerful herbs, man, really powerful. Like, I've never taken them for like 1 month now. I've been taking these, and I feel like 60% less anger with my computer. Like, when I get angry, my mood is better. Everything is better. Just include, don't exclude things.
Yeah, you had
have
videos.
Burgers, and you can have the cake and eat it too, if you're smart.
It's like, look at me. Anybody, my ancestry is basically don't have dairy, except maybe butter, but don't have dairy, and it's part of the culture here, even to the point where everybody's taking pills and stuff, and it's like allergens go. It's like, you go to the doctor, they tell you, they literally end up testing you for AIDS and stuff because they expect white people to have all these allergen responses in their blood and stuff from consuming dairy. And if you don't tell them that you're not consuming dairy, they're like, something's seriously wrong here. Let's go test them for that. And then then in some blood or urine tests, they find out, wait, there's no dairy. That explains the whole thing.
Usually when when doctors say react and say it's not normal, it usually means it's bad for you. Like if something is not normal to the doctor, it means it's beneficial for you. That's kind of how I go about it.
That can be the thing. It's like you know, it's like in my country, if you're 16 and you're not technically an alcoholic, you're not normal. If you've made it to 21 without a venereal, it's not normal. But
good one. Yeah, exactly.
So
or if you're not smoking, or like or if you're not listening to hard rock music or Metallica or whatever the culture wants you to listen to.
Well, that's not so much the normal. So it's like I have coordination problems, and I can play most of these songs. It's like music. The drums are basically 5 beats. There's more variety than that. Almost everything you see is just basically 5 beats, and same thing with pop music. You can put it in that same thing. And you know, Taylor Swift can play the guitar, but she plays 4 notes over and over again on almost all her songs. And I mean, and pretty much nothing's. But the thing you learn with music is that by now everything has been done. They're remixing stuff, but every single beat that you've ever heard, it's out there before. But you know, it was never. It's like even the popular artists. It's like growing up, my favorite musicians were Nirvana, but I didn't like Nevermind.
I love Nirvana very much too.
What?
I remember I loved Nirvana. I have so many childhood nostalgic memories with Nirvana.
One of the interesting things I noticed is that you can change the tempo and switch minor and major chords and have the more popular Nirvana and Weezer songs sound like each other, like it's done by the other, by doing that little switch there. But you know, the guy was an excellent guitarist. He doing stuff that almost nobody can do. And people don't appreciate that. It's like even Prince. Prince was better than most professional musicians on like 20 different instruments or something like that. And I mean, he could pick up anything. I can make some note with any musical instrument I pick up and that sort of thing, but not skilled like I know how to play the music. Just some sort of rhythm thing, whatever. Or figuring, okay, this is how it works on the piano or the guitar, so I'm gonna play this like the keys or that sort of thing. But these people, they're not as appreciated for their better their more effectual music. They're more whatever. It's all that same, but imitate the heart, whatever. It's I mean,
like all these artists, they I mean, they lived in a different time, and when they did music at that time, it was a spontaneous thing, and that's where true skills come from. That's from the spirit. But today, there's a different thing when you do music. Now you actually have to look at everything is pre-made. Everything has already been made, and it's all on the computer. So if you want to do music today,
they very specifically pick certain people. It's like I know this is how it's done, but it's like it used. There were bands that made it that people thought this stuff is. Metallica is one of them. People thought this stuff is good. It's not really what the companies are pushing per se, but this is a band. The same thing with Nirvana and some other ones. But nowadays it's almost entirely have you appeared on some reality television show, or have you played your way through enough bars to kind of make it big? That's it.
Exactly. And so
I mean, some of these artists are pretty good, but a lot of them. And then you don't realize one of the things you don't. It's like you notice certain, in terms of their drug abuse, you notice certain things about them. It's like, oh, without it becoming public, this dude's a cokehead, or this guy likes meth, or something. You can tell there's some stuff that comes through in the style of the music and maybe the message that kind of. But that's the thing. I think.
Skype isn't taking so much Wi-Fi.
To program society through the music.
Skype wasn't taking so much Wi-Fi, so I don't have to worry about it. Skype is very good. It doesn't take so much Wi-Fi from you. That's awesome. Great.
Well, an
Yeah.
hour, an hour in, and I already don't, and I'm only down 20%, which, so there's going to be
Do you
plenty.
have unlimited Wi-Fi there, or?
Uh, Unlimited, yes, but not unlimited with the signal. The signal I've already lost. I get 2 hours of the higher speed, and then they switch you to the lower, and they've reduced the plan since I got the plan, and they're trying to get me. But as I said, it could take me 20 days to get those 2 hours of the higher speed. There's no way in the world I'm spending $60 that an extra $40 that I don't have to go do that stuff. I'll taking it out of the garden to have better Wi-Fi.
I mean, they must give you something for the money. I mean, so
now if
$60
somehow this was making money, I guess I'd have to do that. Or even doing one show a month or something, I'd have to do that. But it's not, so it's not going there.
You feel like your life is balanced perfectly for your life mission, or? Is your life perfectly balanced for you, or?
Anybody could honestly say that, but I have opportunity to make it worthwhile, more than enough with pretty much everything. So yeah, and I honestly find out if I stepped away and whatever, my life would be even more difficult, and I wouldn't have I wouldn't feel as good. I wouldn't have the intellectual work being done.
Stimulation.
So
as an autistic person, I think you need the stimuli you're getting. Like, I think you are an autistic person in the curiosity aspect of it, at least. Like this intellectual stimuli. Like you watch every single YouTube video that exists out there. Like whenever you go to any YouTube video, you'll find you're you there. You know, that's kind of fun, I think. Or is that a correct assessment of you, or?
Well, I watch a lot of YouTube video. It's like how many dramas and movies and all that stuff. I figure, okay, on YouTube I can select what I watch. I have bought, I've bought some of these great courses, and I have a much bigger one in the house and stuff like this. I watch something. I like the Magical Egypt programs. There's been years where that's all I was able to buy, and that's perfectly fine. I'll watch
Egypt. I feel you're very much into Egypt and Arabic, very much Oriental kind of occultism. I feel. Is that right?
Yes. But I don't exactly ignore stuff. But it's like, why am I looking into 20 different churches? I can read Greek, I can read Aramea, I can read Latin. I can I don't need to look into every other church. But it's an interesting thing. I guess it will definitely fit in the definition of satanic, that you can find something biblically wrong with every single church, and that's a wonderful thing to kind of to show up to show. I've walked around churches and pointed out either things that that either the Bible opposed about them, or that was messed up in the Bible. That there's some bad things in the Bible. So bringing those things up, walking around a church, is an interesting thing to do.
I mean, you're very much detail oriented in things. I've noticed. Like you don't leave out any details. You want to give us a full picture as possible in everything.
That's sort of what I have to offer. Is if I can semantically read language, aspects of language that perhaps other people can't, or bring up things that maybe people can, but you're not seeing out there. It's like the Goetia stuff. My language research into that stuff, that's something I could offer the thing, instead of just another one of these people saying, well, the following demon is my best friend, not yours, but this is what, I mean, that's every other video, and I'm sure people have experience that could line up with some of the stuff they're saying, but I wanted to get something out there about that stuff that was something that's
You're doing that very well, I must say, really well. I've looked into your YouTube channel like 4 times in my entire life. And once I was looking at one of your videos about you went into churches, and I really like those videos. Went into the church, and that's how things should be made. Because usually when people speak about something, like you bring them to the very thing. You bring them into the church, you bring them into the club and into whatever.
I do some of that. The interesting thing about doing some of those things, I'll get permission to shoot at a masjid or a church or something, and I'll talk to the imam or the preacher or priest or whatever the person's called, but I don't get interviews of that. But they let me. I'll have permission to film in the church, which I think is interesting. They'll let me film in the church and say whatever I want, but they
let you film it.
Some places have, yeah.
Oh.
Not all of them, but under the law, I can show up to a religious building, wander around the place. If they tell me to leave, I have to leave. But until then, I don't. So I can do what I want until then. But it's like I was given permission to go to a masjid, and I did a video about radical Islam in the thing. But they liked the video, but the only negative response I got were from Christians that thought, oh, they're just. Yeah, well, the whole thing is about being different, but I mean, that was my point, is that they're not just trying to follow along with what's popular. And the guy's like, I know Jesus is in your heart and all this, but I think they tricked you. And it's like, I said real things. So whether I'm for or against something, there's people that it's, supposed to react on.
I have a very objective kind of stand to things, in the sense that you first of all, you're very courageous. Like you put everything to the test. Like if there's a claim, okay, let's go to the church and see how it really is. Like that's the best kind of approach, or a very good approach, very unique approach to things. Like you don't leave anything, anything blank. You go into the church, or if some people say there's a ghost in this building, you go into the building and you see there's no ghost there.
Well, there's a place I wanted to go to in North Carolina that's they call it the Devil's Tramping Ground, but I think it's a meteor. It looks like a meteor impact site to me. But it's been a place of rituals. What?
You went there, or what did you say?
No, I haven't went there. I've looked at what's said about there, but I want to go there and mystically experience the place in the evening in particular. And I do plan to do that.
And that sounds like your thing, because you as I said, if there's a rumor that there's a ghost in the building, you go into the building and you say, oh well.
Well, most of that stuff I don't, because it's like right next to the bar there's a haunting. Really, right next to the bar. It's like every other haunting place is really like that. It's like right next to the bar or something you don't have to go anywhere near there to explain.
Yeah, that's what makes the occult interesting. I think is that instead of just talking about it in your room, go to the haunted place, take a Ouija board, do something that is a real life kind of experiential thing. That's how the occult should be, I think, because otherwise it's just head knowledge.
Things that the experience is like that's if Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly, they wanted to bring back. They thought early Christianity had this experience, and they were hoping to get their work accepted so that people would have that experience again, and the church wasn't having it. Although one of the 40 cardinals of the Catholic Church actually said, "Hey, let's include some of this stuff," and the rest of them said no. So that's where that went. But
they don't want the experience there.
it's like now they're not called Wahhabis, but it's like, okay, you can chant on pilgrimage and you can chant on the holidays, but you can't chant the rest of the year as a group. No, that's nonsense. Or saying, oh, this dude's singing. It's like I've seen videos where some people get beat up or something because they think the guy's singing too beautifully, sitting there with a book of scripture, reading it to himself, and they're like, "Oh no, you need to dull it down," and literally end up see some guy getting whacked with some guy's cane because of, or it's like I've seen. I myself, I had a list, and John Hagee Ministries is wanting me to watch something, and it's like, no, John Hagee, I'll interview the guy, but I think the guy's one of the most horrible individuals.
John Hagee, who was that again? Very familiar name.
He's very hateful. He's a hateful preacher that basically wants a white invasion of the Middle East, and he doesn't think that the brown skinned people who lived in Israel have any right to the land. It should be all immigrants from Europe and stuff.
Is that the Zionist guy?
Yeah, Zionist? Blood and soil Zionism. That's what I'm getting at.
And now, okay, that's him. Okay. Want to interview you or?
No. I'm saying I'll interview anybody basically, but it's not. I don't have to agree with them. Particularly, I want to respond to stuff. It's like if I had Jared Kushner or something. I requested Jared Kushner, and maybe this is going to spoil any opportunity I had. But I would literally end the interview with some of these people by condemning Zionism and praying for its destruction or something. But what was it? Where were we before I got distracted by this pop-up?
That happens. There's more distractions every day coming up. Just you wait.
That's the thing. It's like I'm not going to blame. I was raised to believe that you're going to get condemned for your mere thoughts or your mere feelings. As you know, I was raised. What?
Yeah. I was basically, that's my early relationship with Christianity. So.
This idea that you even feel something. It's like, how in the world do you choose how to get married, who to marry, if you're not allowed to lust? Mm-hmm. But thoughts and all that, they go through you. You decide what to believe and what to do with them. But criticizing people because they had some sensation or something, nonsense. Society can't deal with itself if it can't deal with the fact that it has actual responses to deal with other than just be some machine. But one of the things I was saying is like looking into Islam, I found that there's 33 pieces of advice how to better experience the salat, the ritual prayer, but people ignore it. People ignore some of this stuff, and they're like,
because
just make sure to do it. Just think that if you miss your prayers, you're going to get hit with the hammer from one prayer to the next in the afterlife. And it's like, teach people how to better experience their prayer. Teach them how to have meaning in their prayer. But it's a wonder with so many people out there that it's growing in terms of conversion.
While knowing less and less of what they believe in, right?
What?
I mean, while more and more conversions come in, but the more conversions it comes in, it seems, the less holistic knowledge they have about what they're getting into. Have you noticed that?
Well, the stuff that people are presenting people, because people think there's one aspect of any religion that they want, and they don't know how are we responding to someone at. What do they want to know? What are they looking for in a religion? Let's see what we can have to offer in that category. They usually don't do that. It's like I met a guy who he accepted Islam because he thought this is the most detailed, most rational sort of religion in terms of hell. So he wanted to go around reminding everybody about how graphic the story of hell was in. I guess that's what he remembered going to church when he was a kid, is the hellfire sermons. And he's like, this doesn't even Islam, so I'm going to accept that. But
like we said in the beginning, hell is usually the only reason you need in these religions, for most people at least.
Yeah, it goes on beyond that. But okay, let's back to some. Is there anything mystical that or spiritual or whatever that you believe happened before or during your death, or that you have some level of awareness or
I mean, I think that after you die, well, I think that this world we're living in here, the Matrix, is a dream, but it's a consensus reality. it's a collective dream, and therefore I cannot say to the house turn into a tree and the house turns into a tree, because the consensus will not allow that. But in a lucid dream or astral projection or something, when you're dreaming, you can create anything you want with your mind. And I think that's a subconscious mind. That's the real world. And I think that the Matrix is like gatekeeping our consciousness to that. So we cannot create whatever we want with our thoughts. So I think that after we die, we get into that world where we can manifest anything we want with our imagination, sort of thing. What do you think about this?
Well, I do think there's a crystallization of your beliefs and your actions and all that when you pass over. If a Christian's going to denigrate themselves and call themselves "I'm a sinner and not worthy" and all this other stuff,
and that's what we're gonna see.
Whether there's a God or a Godhead, why would this?
There's actually a guy on YouTube
saying, "Oh, yeah, you know what's going to happen with unworthy sinners, so here's where you're going to go." It's like, "Oh, I thought that's how you win." It's like, no, that's not how you win. That's not how you win in this life.
There's a guy on YouTube, a very interesting. I don't know if have you seen him. His name is let's see if, what his name was again. There's a very interesting guy who is he speaks about the archons and near-death experiences, and let's see if I can find. I think his name was Rick, or hi, this is Rick or Nick, or he said something very nice about this. Let's see if I find him. Rick Archons.
I don't. Well, I think we can look at things in terms of like, in Buddhism, they focus on this dukkha, this discontent.
Here he is, Rich 2150. His name is Rich 2150. He speaks about belief system territories.
But there's what I'm saying. I think of things in two things we can attach to this. There's a difference between difficulty and suffering, and most people suffer because they're allowing their judgments to make the situation worse, or to keep themselves what they could be doing because they're just artificially limiting themselves.
Can you give an example of that?
Like
your own life.
Well, I mean, it's like if I go to a doctor, they expect, because the amount of pain and stuff that I have to deal with, that I just must be this miserable person emotionally all the time, and I'm not. I put it somewhere different. It's like, why in the world, I have the situation I have to deal with. I have the situation. Why in the world am I just sitting around trying to make it worse by thinking my way into it being worse? If a person has, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder, they have post-traumatic stress disorder, but they don't necessarily have to make it even worse by sitting around, woe is me. I mean, there is stuff they have.
Now I got it. So I mean, society wants to put us there.
And we're all told, rather than, if your needs are for, people don't know their needs. If you know your needs, then that's a key way to stop suffering. It's like, oh, I can have, some fruit, some raw salad, a thing of grains, something, and that's enough. If I can't afford to spend $20-$30 a day going out to eat, that's no problem. If I don't get the movies that I want to watch, whatever. My country switched to the point where more people right now are going to libraries than they go to movie theaters for the first time in like 60 years or something.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the keys, is that just people realize. It's like people think it's like if you have 9 feet by 9 feet by 9 feet in a room, and
did you drop something?
Yeah, and I accidentally set off a trap in the corner. You have 9 feet by 9 feet by 9 feet. There's no reason why physiologically you should have some problems, but people feel like it's like they watch the rich lifestyles of the rich and famous, or whatever the thing is nowadays. I don't know. I can have the TV off for months. So I don't necessarily know what a lot of this stuff is, and but the if I'm not, it's like, again, these people with their mansions and their tens of millions of dollars, do you think they have the same anxieties and stuff the rest of us have? They probably don't want to take a dump in the morning because that's kind of gross and you have to clean up after yourselves, or maybe you don't want to clean up after yourself. Whatever the deal is, I don't think most people want to go through with that if it wasn't necessary for living.
Interesting. Yeah.
But
as you said, I like what one thing I could paraphrase you in a way is that the people in the Western world, what I've noticed is that they've been purposely blinded to see that the most powerful solutions to most of your problems are often the most simple solutions. Complicate everything. Like sometimes
it's like, okay, there's a lot of diseases, whatever. They want, first of all, vaccines can cause damage. It's like, did you know that they showed, for example, there's 2 vaccines out there. One they usually have both together, but either one of them can increase your, if you have either one of the hepatitis B or the tuberculosis vaccine, you have to be exposed to a 20th or a 50th of the HIV virus to actually have it catch on. So if you don't get those vaccines, even being exposed, you now I'm not saying people should go to the risk, but your odds of actually developing the disease are basically nil for minor exposure if you don't take those vaccines. But they all get us to have those vaccines. And instead of telling people, okay, eat a diet rich in vitamin C, don't have antibiotics in your food. Maybe when you do get sick, maybe have go on a liquid diet and after some fasting and through enemas or something else, warm your system to help you fight this disease, and you'll do better than almost all these. But they want to figure out a way to. It's like the coronavirus. Have these people so loaded up on flu and AIDS medication?
Actually, did a video on it if you've seen it. Yeah.
But again, all these.
My latest video on coronavirus. That's a video I made. But I mean.
Yeah, I saw that you did that. But it's whether this stuff, whether it's the big plague or not, it's a distraction, and they're trying to keep us from knowing what to do. They're trying to distract us also from knowing what to do, which is usually proven effective. That's always been done until the modern time where all the companies say, here are drugs, just get it done with drugs.
For example, many of these herbs have been taken for thousands of years. And now suddenly, just because Big Pharma comes and says, oh, take this medication here. Forget about those 1,000 years herbs that people have been using, like turmeric and whatever else, And they want to complicate everything. And I think that 99% of the people, reason why people are depressed, I think you could agree, is because they've been blinded to see that the most simplest solutions. I think depression is not the problem. I don't think
the singing, the vibrations in your head are going to cause the serotonin and various things to actually produce at a better rate than the experimentation with the pills.
Wow, it's actually that simple. Simpler than I thought, even. I think many of the Western problems are because of this. I think most problems in the Western world are not problems at all. They're just designed problems, you could say. Like they're designed to be there because most of those design problems would not be there if people could just see the simplest solutions to those problems.
Well, we see things building up, over the course of tens of thousands of years, actually. But once it's like look at what happened with Cyrus the Great. Well, let's just call him that. That's not how you say his name in person. Cyrus the Great. After he was gone, they said, but look at what we did with all the professional priests before, and they brought it all back. When the Arabs went into Arabia, they said, but look at what happened with the Mobeds. We can have the mullahs and the ayatollahs and stuff do the same stuff that they used to do. So whatever, there's always this memory in those in charge, even when you kind of chase away the priestcraft and the statecraft, someone comes back in, someone says, but look, it happened before. And people just step right in line. It's like, in my country, they have some of the stores have you line up at the door and hand over your receipt. Under the law, they can't require you to do that. But it's such a hoopla if you try to say, oh, it's like, I went to the counter, I have my receipt. It's unless you think you have me on camera stealing or something, you're not supposed to stop me. It's unlawful. It's unlawful imprisonment. If they actually tried to do, there's been people but they don't publicize if anybody files a lawsuit that they've been kept in a store because these people are saying, oh, but it's our custom to hand over your receipt and have the guy look through your cart. You could have something embarrassing in there. Why is it the average person at the door's business? But
I got you there. Can you give another example of what you meant? I don't think I really got what you meant. What you said.
Well, I was saying how like Sam's Club and some other stores, they don't. They stop you at the door on the way out to look over your cart via your receipt to see if all the items match up. And that's
what match up?
They take your receipt and then they look over your cart, and it's like,
why do you do that?
It's basically a control mechanism. We don't have to do that, and they don't even under the law they don't have per se the right to do that, and people are like,
they do it anyway.
Like, we're all lined up, and if you say no, let me through, it's the law, and they actually will. They won't let you out, and they'll stop and find out whether or not it's the law.
They won't do that, right?
But people just
they will just
and with the corporations, people don't. Again, they do whatever the corporation wants.
It's the same there. Yeah, I've noticed this very much in the corporations. That most of them they just do.
The thing I've noticed it, rather than blaming it on some paper, the people who act, they're still responsible. The people who set up a corporation, if they want to hire people for twice the usual rate, they'll do that because they figure that's the fair wage, rather than I can get away with paying people half as much. But almost no corporation is set up like that. Walmart could pay entry employees $40,000. It's not the most of a yearly wage, but they don't because they can get away with it. But some companies are good for or whatever, but they've specifically set themselves up that way.
It's by design, right? Not by accident. It's by design. It's not by accident that this is set up. I think corporations were created on purpose to be able to do this. I think laws are just a smokescreen for in the corporate world, because corporations are supposed to be independent.
They write the laws how they want. It's like, as I'm saying, they've set it up so, for example, Facebook. Being deplatformed from Facebook, I found out something.
Okay.
They don't. Either you have to violate they're under contract to not kick you off their server unless you actually violate clear terms of service. But
I'll actually be kicked out for less than that.
But they do if they find out you're poor. They actually have somebody look at it if they think.
Okay, now I gotcha.
Because they don't want somebody who can invest $100,000 and win a court case against them and get $1 million or $2 million back. But that's what I was told. It's, if I had 100,000, I'm looking out a window at a building that could be completely repaired and increase an extra 100,000 of the property value by doing those certain repairs and remodeling. But I don't have that money. If I had the money to do that, I wouldn't want Facebook back. I'd want that house to be worth something rather than nothing. It's literally worth nothing in terms of increasing the value of the property. Basically living on a lot with a few vehicles. That's it. Nothing else here is worth money. Well, I mean, trees and stuff like that, they're worth money, but
exactly.
Because
trees should be worth the most, I think. Trees and rocks and lakes and,
if
birds.
If things get bad here, people are going to wish, the dude who who had 10 trees planted to grow fruit, he's, I wish I did what he did. They're not going to be, their bank account and all that's not going to worry. They're going to say, why didn't I do something like that?
Why didn't I plant those trees?
Because you see, you can go for miles. You can go for miles driving about, even 10, 15 miles, nothing. Nothing in terms of a garden or anything that you could see that would feed anybody, anything. And all over, you see spots where people could be growing thousands of dollars worth of food every single year. But that's what I mean when I think there's going to be a higher death. If there's anything serious that happens with the environment or anything like that, I think America's going to have a higher death rate than almost any country because of reasons like that.
Yeah, me too. I really think so. Because the more dependent you are on the system, the more you're going to collapse when things go wrong. So.
Getting back to the question list, how much time do you think could be spent on spiritual practices on a daily basis?
24 hours of the day, I think. Spirituality is not something you should do. Meditation is not something you do, it's something you are. And if you really are passionate about something, you do it all the time. I don't think spirituality is something you set out.
It's like dreaming and eating and all this other stuff that we just naturally do. You fall asleep in meditation, your whole sleep's like that, or however you want to phrase that sort of stuff. It's
exactly.
Just think it can't be done. And if you go to work and there's some principle in your life that you're working, not just I got to get the money, then that's okay. You realize you're not doing anything wrong for your job or whatever. That's
like I've been to many New Age communities, for example, and when I was there, I noticed. I can tell you one good example, one good story. As I was it was in Sweden. I live in Sweden, so it was this called Ängsbacka Festival in Sweden. No Mind Festival, and I was there, and there's a lot of New Age people there. Vegans and all kind of people, and they had this meditation day. Like once in a while, they had a meditation day for 1 day straight, no speaking, and I thought that was all ridiculous. I broke the rule, of course. I spoke in the meditation day just to show people that meditation is not the absence of words. Meditation is a state of mind. If you can't be meditative in a very chaotic environment, then you're not a meditator. And so if I'm speaking right now and you say shh, then it's like people have made a distinction between this is meditation and this is not meditation. Meditation, when you're speaking, you're not meditating. But I think you can speak, you can do a lot of things and still meditate. And it's the same with spirituality. I think spirituality is something you do all the time. So
yeah, if we are, if we're not this, if we're not the, if you're familiar with the psychological diagrams, there's this the more common one in the East is sort of the Jungian. You got the circle and you got the square and the lines and But if we're not just somebody and that's it, if we're not this psychiatric construction of reality, which is the cube or the square, then obviously, again, how we use this stuff can really be for our spirit soul, as it would be called, if we're referring to something beyond that. But yeah, it's a choice. It's not, it's not that things are disconnected. It's like one of the ways to translate the word, the name diabolos is the separate. Casting something, but diabolos and iblis kind of connect to this separated from consciousness. It's not
What's
that
diabolos? What did you say? Diabolos?
Yeah, diabolos.
Oh, diabolos. Okay. Yeah. All right.
But both connect to this separated consciousness. So they're separated from the hope. Iblis comes from separated from hope, and the others, the other sort. And it's like, but it doesn't mean that's not available. It just means that the consciousness is, away from that sort of thing. And exactly. That's part of,
it's just a matter of focus.
If you've noticed, like, people mean all sorts of things when they say God. So that sort of way of speaking is, you don't know what people mean, but definitely that's what I mean when I change. When my meme that I used with certain guests is, the become a living demon meme. I don't mean God. I mean demon. What? In the sense that
you're using the equating meme. Become a living demon, not a living God. I got you. Yeah.
Because they're trying to see themselves as separate, and I don't think of them as something. There are people who worship these people, some of these people, but I don't think they're worthy of that. I don't really think anybody is any of these people or whatnot that we refer to. It's like, I do respond to the International Society of Christian Consciousness, but again, I don't think, I don't believe in some God that incarnated 5,000 years ago as such.
Me neither.
So I'm very specific, not promoting that. I don't, I don't think it's all about just, as the Bible says about the whole, one jot of the law, it's like you broke the whole thing. So therefore, if you miss the Jesus thing, all the good is like dirty rags and all this stuff. It's like, no. Don't buy that sort of thinking at all. So when they say it about some king 5,000 years ago, it's the same thing through my mind. Just remember this king. No, that doesn't do you any good. Is there anything that you would find difficulty or would not want to do as part of one's spirituality?
Sorry, what was the question again?
Is there anything that you would find difficult or that you would not want to do as part of your own spirituality?
Okay. All right. That question is something I've never thought about. I think the difficulty would be dealing with all confusion, first of all, that is included in spirituality. That I would say. A lot of confusion there, I must say. So that's what I would not want to include in spirituality, because spirituality to me means clarity. To me, they go hand in hand. Clarity, awareness, spirituality. Being confused is not a good thing.
Well, particularly, it's bad enough when you got some group like the Christians and the Jews trying to compile what's left of some religious various religious. Some of those books that are mentioned in the Bible, not included, are actually bigger than the whole Bible. If from what they found, but anyways, it's bad enough when you're trying to compile some tradition out of other traditions and you're not quite sure and all that stuff. And pseudo-epigraphals, they're putting names on these books that aren't there. It's not who wrote it. or maybe it's a different Moses from like 1,000 years later or something like that. But they're.
Can I give you one example of what I meant? Yeah.
What?
Are you finished with what you want to say? Because I want to give you a great example.
I was saying like these New Agers who but when they invent their own texts, and they're very deliberately doing this, like they say, contradictions are just part of the lower world. They are, but that's because people choose them to be.
Yeah, and they've justified the contradictions. And this is what I wanted to say. There's a lot of justification for the contradictions. And like, for example, one thing, I'm going to give you my favorite analogy, my absolute favorite analogy that I've been given to a lot of people. And I would like to give it to you to share with the audience, okay? To get the audience to think about this. Like, if you really think about this, really think about it. Jesus Christ. Okay, let's go to Jesus now, okay? Now, Jesus said, he actually said to his disciples, they asked him, why do you speak to them in parables? That it is not given to them to know the kingdom of God. It's not given to them to know what I'm actually saying. It's only given to you to actually know my true teachings. So Jesus had, he deliberately confused people. So, given that he deliberately confused people, here's the analogy for you. Imagine I'm God, and I put you in a labyrinth or a maze. I put you in a labyrinth and a maze. And I want you, because I love you, I want you to find the cheese in the labyrinth or the exit or whatever. So I give you a map and I give you a compass. But the map is not clear. I give you a confusing map, and I give you a compass that doesn't show correctly where you are. So if I do that, and you are not finding salvation, you are not finding the cheese, who do you blame? You or the map maker? I'll answer the question.
Well, obviously,
if you can't find the exit, if you can't find the exit in the maze, if you can't find the cheese, is it because I, as God, gave you a confusing map, or is it because you couldn't read the map?
It'd be the fault whoever's giving the flawed map. But the one thing I found it very clear that every other claim to religion, it wasn't really the founder. It's some group of priests that composed something together. And maybe there was some remnant of whatever. And Mencius founded Confucianism, not Confucius. Buddha yoga. Buddha yoga became Buddhism. The various messianic figures became Christianity, and I don't think Judaism didn't happen until for quite a while after the tribe of Israel was doing its thing. But it was group after group after group. It wasn't really the founder. It's some group of priests that compile something together. So I blame these priests that did all these edits, these religions, and you find manuscripts proving they were edited.
Then the next question becomes, if that is the case, the next question becomes, if God is all powerful and all knowing and all, can't he preserve his own word? Is God not powerful enough to preserve his pure word? That a lot of priests must come and change it?
That's sort of the or at least have something out there that's the thing. I have a book, and this book is saying now there's 10,000 not right behind me, so I'm not putting it right in front of the screen, but there's 10,000 Greek variants in the New Testament text. And this thing has, you have different words. It's not just dialectical things. Like the Quran has some dialectical things going on that in one language you have a seen versus a thought or something like that. And it's the same word. But, it's not like that. You have whole chapters that are added, verses, words, whatever, and stuff is taken out. You have the same thing with the Old Testament, the so-called Old Testament too, and it's like, but I have this book that basically says in the Bible your basic 66-book Protestant
Yeah.
Bible, you find over 1,300 contradictions. And they're telling you, okay, and this same author is saying between the Quran has 600 something when you compare it to the Bible, but it doesn't have any internal things. But even though the Quran doesn't have any contradictions, you better accept the Bible with all its contradictions, because that's the way to go. They're literally making it. I think people probably accepted Islam after reading that that book.
Maybe that was purpose.
But they do that. They hand out these things. It's like, it's confusing, and that's just the mystery of it all. And it's like, it doesn't have to be. It's utterly ridiculous. Forget all the ethical issues of sexism and stuff like this. That was enough to kick me off the list. When I was young, I noticed. I was 7 years old. I went to my father, and I was noticing contradictions and all that in the Bible. It was good I went to my father instead of my mother. I respect my mother, but that would have been the wrong person to talk to about this. And he said, because I said, I'm going to fix this someday. I'm going to do my own version of the Bible. And basically, my father wasn't discouraging. I don't remember exactly what he said at the moment, but basically, no, that started my long search of truth. And I knew there was stuff throughout the world, not just one tribe getting all the stuff. I figured that there should be guidance everywhere, but
okay, let me ask you some questions related to the things you are speaking a lot about in your channel. You obviously speak a lot about confusion, and how to bring those confusions to the rest by bringing people first time experiences and stuff. But one question I would like to ask you is, do you believe that Jesus Christ is directly responsible for the killings that have happened in the church as a result of his deliberately confusing teachings? Like, for example, Jesus said, all those who will not bow down and follow me, in one of the parables, bring hither and kill them before me, for example. Now, maybe
yeah, Luke 19, I think.
What do you think about this?
Well, historically, we can say that Jesus is an egregor based on 4 historical characters and a whole series of things. The warlord Barabbas, as they call them, Judah Barabbas ben Judah, is actually, he wrote what the book of Revelation is a rewrite of what he wrote earlier.
I've heard about Barabbas, yeah.
And Apollonius of Tyana, also known as Christ, he had to die for Christianity to take off. He had to be dead for about 20 years before people said, oh, Apollonius of Tyana was a stronger movement. That Paul was around when that guy was the thing. And some of that story got grafted onto that. Now, particularly the warlord who wanted to get things back from the Romans, I blame him. It's clear that he's responsible for a lot of the stuff that's going on. So in that way, you can say, oh, yeah, yes, that particular one of the historical figures would be responsible for accept me as your leader, or the goal is to kill everybody who doesn't accept me as the leader. It's like, look at what happened that part of what allowed Christianity to take off is because the Bar Kokhba revolt was what the more materialistic Jews wanted. But the Romans came back hard. There was coins minted for the Bar Kokhba in around 70, but the Romans clashed down so hard that it destroyed a lot of the evidence against some of the Christian claims. So that was very convenient for them. But yeah, and Paul, I definitely Paul, I would because Paul, cursing people to death and his level of authority that he would have wanted over things. Definitely, I blame him too for these sorts of teachings. And we saw with the appearance of Judaism, the second book of Maccabees is when it historically made itself known. And what is the book of Maccabees? Just like the Mahabharata, starting in stereotypical Hinduism, a war chronicle. these were this, just like stereotypical Hinduism,
Oh.
upon a war chronicle. And if you tie it to something else, you're going to have to say that it started because they realized that there were powerful groups of priesthoods around, and knew they could do something with the thing. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. We can get back to this, but I'm going to have to take a break for a few minutes.
Can I just finish this point? The reason I asked you the question, first of all, was because, many Christians have told me, I tell them, Christianity must be evil because they're, the Inquisition, for example, and they say, well, you can't blame the church for misinterpreting Jesus's words, they say, or it's not Jesus's fault. But I disagree with that, because I think that
the thing these people who are either claiming to be fundamentalist, or they are conservatives or whatnot, that you can definitely blame the Bible. You can look time and time again how they're killing women and children. They're fighting people they don't have to fight. People are being tortured.
Thank you. Finally, you understood what I was saying. Thank you.
I mean, to act like it's not in the Bible. It's not like they're taking, exactly. These people are persecuting. These people are driving people out of homes, and then when you get the opportunity to seize them and kill them wherever you find them, it's not that sort of thing. The Bible doesn't quite give things that sort of context. It's always some ethnic cleansing sort of thing that they're.
Yeah. So you blame the map maker if people are doing bad things because of religion or not finding the right way. You're not blaming the map followers, because God. The question is, if God is all-knowing and all-wise, why? If He really cares about us and He doesn't want us to kill each other and stuff, and doesn't want us like inquisitions, why couldn't He speak in a less ambiguous manner? Why couldn't He be more clear, so that we wouldn't have to be confused, so we wouldn't have to kill him?
If you look at this, one quarter, I can do semantic stuff, yes, but in terms of living language, 1/4 of the words in here, any version of the past 2,000 years, any compilation of the Jewish scripture in the past 2,000 years, 1/4 of the words have no living meaning. How can the guidance for this age be based on a language that people can't speak 1/4 of the words in the text?
There's the language barrier as well here.
If there's even one word, that would be a question. Maybe there'd have to be something else come forward. But, hundreds of words that you don't really have any living meaning of, that just.
Then I'm going to ask another question, which goes with it, is that what was the point of God giving us a teaching in the first place if it was never going to be applicable to any age because of language barriers, because of so many barriers? What was the point in God speaking in the first place then?
Well, Bible. Obviously, some of this would be to give an extra opportunity. One would say that if that sort of thing went down, that's what one would have to say. But some stuff we don't quite understand. Like, for example, looking into the Yazidi. The Yazidi worship an entity that calls, in the Western, it's called Malik Taos is called Shaitan.
Yeah.
And Shaitan means cast out of a place. It's obviously the same devil. But the not wearing the blue or the purple is part of their culture. So having a thread of purple or blue on your clothing, like the Jews do with that stripe on the edge of their thing, that is to show they're not Satanist.
Yeah.
So I understand where that comes from. Some of the things I have no idea. But as I'm saying, they interacted with this Judaism didn't start until the Persians conquered them and they came back. Anything that you could call Judaism is basically a reaction to what was going on. They said, okay, we have a group of priests. So the funny thing, if you read this, it says the Ha-Kahanim are the enemies. Jeremiah, Isaiah, whatever, the Ha-Kahanim. You know who the Ha-Kahanim are?
Tell me about that.
The rabbis and the Cohens. In their own book, they left in that the rabbis and the Cohens are the real enemies. I think that's hilarious. But
That is hilarious.
the but they basically realized some of these things. It used to be everybody. If you wanted to do a sacrifice, you could do a sacrifice, whatever. But it's got to the point that you have a rabbi look over your salad. You know,
yeah.
everybody can go through their own grain storage or whatever, but the rabbi has to kosher your salad by looking over, by standing at the factory, making sure that, you know. But they realized that it was done in other cultures, so they kind of developed something.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let's go to your next questions then.
Okay, yeah, just a couple more, and then I could get back to it after a few minute break, but or I could ask you, or I could mute things and ask you to tell a story or something. So what limits would you are there any other limits that you would ascribe to divinity?
I didn't hear the last part. What did you say?
What limits would you ascribe to divinity?
Okay, to divinity. I can think of only one. It's called stupidity. Yeah, that would be my answer. And with stupidity, I mean not being passionate about the answer. Not, you know, it's a priority thing. Like if you prioritize truth or not. If you don't prioritize truth, that's my definition of stupid. So you have to know the value of truth, because to me, truth means freedom. So yeah, you have to seek. If you want to have a good experience in life, you need truth. The more you know, the less suffering you will create for yourself and others. And so it's our responsibility to know if we don't want to cause suffering to ourselves and others. And if you don't take that responsibility by wanting to raise your awareness and seeking knowledge, then you are stupid. And that's the only limitation that I see to spirituality, really.
Well, that's the real thing. The middle pillar is getting at the raising of consciousness, not just decreasing some wickedness and increasing.
More about those pillars.
What?
Maybe you can mention those pillars a little more.
Well, a couple of things that I kind of looked at in terms of how to summarize things is the. On one hand,
it's your own model.
Yeah, different ways I've expressed things, but understanding, experience, unity is, I think, the phrase that I used in my channel description. But it's not just okay. You're uplifting some righteousness. You're lifting down some wickedness. You got to move consciousness with it too, because
exactly. Oh yeah, that's been what I've said for 20 years or so. We're very alike. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any? So how? You're basically you've talked about this demiurgic sort of thing. I see demiurge comes from workman or something. So it does seem that there is a group of beings out there, not humans that are just the archons and whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. You said it.
That are trying to trick humanity into having a different view of things than is really there, to the point where where people believe that the world is flat and various other things that, it's things are just suggested either.
I don't think it's a matter of making people believe in faulty things. I think it's just a matter of making people believe in or sowing the seeds of confusion in the most important things that people should know. So you take the most important things.
Prioritizing that too. It's kind of doing something, a twist. So priorities get twisted and various other things get twisted.
Yeah. Was that a question that I missed?
No. I think the last thing I asked was in terms of, is there anything else in particular that you would believe about divinity, or any favorite attributes? You said negative, so.
Say the question again. I didn't get it.
You said that you like stupidity. So in terms of, is there anything that you like about divinity?
Okay. To me, it depends on how you define divinity. To me, divinity means. I'll give you one example of what divinity means. Have you ever listened to a piece of song and maybe you are walking down the forest, you're looking at the trees and the birds and the sky and the clouds, and all of that together creates a very beautiful experience where you almost cry or you feel goosebumps in your entire body. That to me is divinity. Like when you're so into the moment, you're so into, your senses are, you experiencing something beyond the normal, like kind of thing. Like that keeps you inspired and you feel goosebumps and tears come down your eyes. And that to me is divinity. And so I think that is the good thing in itself. Mine experience.
Well, I definitely see in terms of, like, if one is to I mean, we've made, I think you've I've got across to you that I don't believe in the personification limitations, that sort of thing. But it's like it goes beyond qualities. It's like some essence that you can't even say the qualities of, but you can realize it's in your daily life through just being in the moment. That's a definition in a way that I would agree with. But I'm going to have to break for 2 or 3 minutes or something like that. So,
all right. Are you coming back later or?
Yeah, I just need maybe, I'm thinking 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, I actually need a break myself. I need to breathe a little bit, like deep breaths or something. But shall we go back in 1650 or something, or in 10 minutes, or in 5, okay. Or?
Yeah, that will work. So.
Okay, we say 10 minutes.